Hi there, listeners. It's your friendly neighborhood library student, Belinda Ongaro, and you're listening to Shout for Libraries on CJSR in Edmonton. For those of you who haven't tuned into Shout before, every month we pick a topic relevant to librarianship and information studies. In a mind-boggling turn of events, it is somehow March again. Despite the temporal confusion, we are excited to present to you the second half of last month's episode on digital literacy. Let's dive back into Dan Hackborn's interview with Jacey and Kyle, who shared their experiences in relation to the Digital NWT project.
And necessary to those local solutions is skill building, which I guess is kind of the mandate of Digital NWT and building capacity in that way. So would either of you be willing to, I've heard the term training the trainer, but would either of you be willing to speak more to that?
So Jacey makes instructional videos and has been considering the orientation of that. So maybe Jacey, if you wanted to talk about the process and mindset behind those videos, and I'll talk about the train the trainer stuff.
Sure, sounds great. And thanks for answering the last question, Kyle. Answered it a lot better than I could. So I'll start off with a goal of Digital NWT is sharing resources on digital literacy, making it accessible, and for the public being able to participate in things such as CIRA and CRTC. So when it comes to information for elders, for youth, digital literacy is so important. I know a lot of programs in the NWT offer free digital literacy for elders. And then I was telling Kyle one time that even my parents have just in the past, decade or so learned how to text, use a cell phone, go on Facebook. And then as a teenager, I was like, oh no, my parents now know technology. But yeah, seeing them learn how to online shop and stuff is kind of weird. But yeah, I guess the younger generations that really grew up with the technology, and if an elder wants to learn how to use Facebook and connect with family, or they have to go use their email or sign on to something to pay a power bill, and it's like, okay, how do they stay safe? How do they learn? How do community members, without a whole lot of connectivity, learn how to stay safe against malware and spam and hacking? And then still today, a lot of youth may not know how to use these technologies. And so yeah, really creating accessible learning resources is something that I'm happy to be involved in, creating digital literacy videos on how to sign on to Zoom, how to check privacy settings on Facebook, and doing it in a way that could be understood if someone may have a hearing problem, or instructional videos are the best way that they learn.
And that's exactly it, right? So what Jacey's saying about elders and youth, each having their own kind of the difference in understanding and using technologies, and their own range in digital literacy. And I will say that just because you're a youth doesn't mean that you're necessarily digitally literate. There are ranges of digital literacy between that. I mean, there's a difference between watching a YouTube video and being a YouTube creator. And there are youth YouTube creators in the Northwest Territories. And so, just last night though, I was helping an elder log into an international Zoom call in which this elder was guiding the discussion. What this is just another situation in which, it took us a while. It took us, we practiced the day before and all of this, and we tried various solutions. At one point, he was using the phone for audio and Zoom for video because the audio wasn't working. And so it's trying to navigate all this from a distance poses a challenge, right? And so, so with the train the trainer models and delivery, previously it had been delivered in person, and I'm not a community trainer or someone who's delivering that, but I have had a chance to review the curriculum to ensure that just reviewing the locality of it and things like that. So what Digital NWT does is not impose what we view as important to communities. It's more of a collaborative approach where we ask communities, what would be beneficial for you to hear about? So for instance, with Jacey's digital literacy videos, there's a big bulk of videos where they'll be under the hashtag NWT digital literacy campaign. And those videos are instructional. And like she said, will help people on various platforms, like whether you're using a Mac or a PC to log into Zoom. So it's very elder oriented or to people who are not necessarily digitally literate, right? Like I said, they don't have to be elders. And it speaks to communities. It's not just a YouTube video, here's how you connect to Zoom. It's like someone from the community being like, you know what, here are probably the issues that you're going to encounter, but don't worry, follow me and let's work through this together. So like the tone of it's a lot different. So what's really important, I think, in this question is that we don't assert what communities should learn. It's more that we're hearing from communities and are delivering and tailoring curriculum that the trainers would then deliver to those communities in which they're reflexive to what the communities want to learn. Like if they don't want to learn how to use Microsoft Word or Libra or whatever Office alternative, open source or otherwise, let's say that's not their jam, but they do want to learn about community intellectual property and archiving and Indigenous protocol as that relates to that, then that's what the community would engage with, right? So it's not up to us to determine that, but if that's a community interest, they would support that.
And do you find that there have been specific skills or skill sets that the community has asked for? And if you could, would you speak to which ones?
So, like I said, the communities in the Northwest Territories are often differently bureaucratic, and I'm just a sample of one, and so can't necessarily speak to what the community trainers are hearing from their individual communities that they're working with as priorities. But I can say in the materials that we're developing, it's what we're focusing on right now is establishing community networks. So like offline community connectivity. So that means that even without the internet, you would be able to, ask, so-and-so Desiree down the block for flour at 3 a.m. Even if you didn't have to call or text, or you can share recipes or have like an online photo archive database or like a language database or even like we see open source programs like Makutu, in which communities can have protocol labels, ensuring that individuals who are of that community have gone through maybe ceremonial or spiritual protocol before they can access the digitized knowledge. And now with this digitized knowledge, it's Jennifer Wemigwan, who's I believe a Ojibwe Anishinaabe, who refers to that digitized Indigenous knowledge as a digital bundle. And so that's not necessarily a theory from where I'm from. It's not a Dene or Métis or Inuit theory from Denende or Northwest Territories, but I really like that treatment. And so there's a lot to learn and a lot to apply and a lot of experiences that would be brought into this curricula. But yeah, ultimately it's from the communities themselves. But yeah, sovereignty, autonomy, and so sometimes going from just the very, very basics, right, the things that you would need to work in an office, to explorations on potential of GIS or virtual reality or music. I mean, those aren't things that we'll necessarily teach in, but that we'll touch on. And like Jacey's digital literacy is just fantastic. Like she not only does she make videos or like instructional videos, but she uses social media to support language revitalization in such a strong way. And tools like Canva and Photopea and other photo editing things. So it's like, I'm just like always impressed. and so, and personally, I'm a video game designer. Like I use video games as a conduit for language learning, or just tools, right? Any tools and technologies as a conduit for Indigenous language revitalization. And so, you get into sections of the content where you address Unicode, for instance. So Unicode meaning it supports orthographies outside of English. So Dene Roman orthographies or syllabics, things like that. So I use Dene Roman orthographies in my video game, and this is just one of the many examples of the benefits of digital literacy and sovereignty over your own content creation. So yeah, like community content creation and sovereignty over networks.
And speaking of that, Jacey, a number of years ago, you began the Speak Witchin to Me campaign on social media. So can you talk about the work that you've done in language revitalization in the years since, and whether or not you've seen any major changes during that time, and how digital technologies continue to fit into that resurgence?
Yes, Masicho, thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking about it a while back. Hashtag Speak Witchin to Me. It's been like 6 years of using hashtags to get information out there for language and language revitalization on social media. Yeah, it's been amazing using like 6 platforms and getting over 3,000 people following for over the past 6 years, and just by with the hashtag and getting attention through the media and word of mouth, and being able to speak and stand at local, national, international platforms, and helping to get the word out for my language, Gwich'in, with less than 500 speakers, and the importance of my language and other languages, inspiring others to do the same. Even around the Northwest Territories, there's other language campaigns that started before and after Speak Witchin to Me, and I've been connected with others across the North and Canada that have started their own, even in Alaska. And in relation to what I've seen, yeah, I feel like there's a lot more digital campaigns for language revitalization. Hashtag Speak Witchin to Me is known as kind of helping to lead the way in that, although I've seen others do the same before me. And now in my nation, there's a Gwich'in language immersion for junior kindergarten that's just rolling out. So that's really nice to see, and to always keeping up with who's learning the language, who's sharing, who's creating their own campaigns. And yeah, I feel like there's a lot more going on than when I started. And it's always really good to see. And some communities are getting more connected now in the NWT, such as unlimited internet and more access since then. And I look forward to seeing our languages and our digital access get better.
So moving on from language, or maybe to complement the topic of language within cultural revitalization, I noticed that many of the digital innovators involved in Digital NWT are creative people. Kyle, you yourself just said that you're a video game designer, and that many of the others are artists or musicians. Was that by design, or did it just work out that way?
I think you inherently have a lot of creatives in up in the territories. I don't actually really want to call it the territories, but Danende and Inuit Nunangat, where the colonial bounds of Northwest Territories overlap on. And so yeah, there are just like a ton of creative people across all these communities. So imagine you have that much time outside of the busyness of the industrial urbanized South. You have that much time where communities are more likely to go out. Like I said, that we use technologies differently and have used technologies for quite a while. So people have more of a likelihood of using. I'm going to talk about old school technologies, and then I'm going to talk about creative uses of digital technology. So you have more people who are likely to use trapping and skidoos and guns and and those kinds of technologies. Well, you have other technologies like the guitar or like the computer. And so, right, you have more people who I think who are differently creatively inspired, and you know, I would say that's largely a gift from the land and the environment, and like you're saying, the language. And so with the community and the culture being different and not seeing one's culture necessarily represented in mainstream media, perhaps there's more of a want to create, you know, to to create for your communities. So and then you have conspiracy theories, like in Tabacha, where I'm from, Fort Smith. There's the Rapids of the Drowned, and people say that you're more creative from there because of the pink noise from the rapids, from the infrasound of the pink noise of the rapids. So, I mean, for whatever reason, there are a lot of creatives, and I think that you have just different experiences, right? People who are different experiences from. I mean, you're calling from Edmonton, right, Daniel?
Yeah.
So from larger cities, and so there's a different feeling. And it's not to say, you know, one's better than the other, but when the majority of your media is represented by people who you aren't represented by, then I think that there's more of a want to create. Jacey, yeah, the question around you know, the digital innovators that you've released, including, you know, Agnes as a creative who you know, yeah, what are your thoughts around those that we've featured?
Yeah, it's so amazing. Like the first NWT digital innovator being Leanne Goose, a singer, an artist, and a lot more from where I'm from in the Delta. Super amazing. Like even saying that representation, as Kyle mentioned before. And then having Agnes Mitchell, one of our Which End speakers, featured, and how she's working on teaching the language like over Zoom and online. And other artists, just Casey Koizan from Yellowknife, and all the amazing work that he's doing. And yeah, it's really amazing seeing representation even from our own people across Denendeh. And yeah, it's really beautiful, and I really enjoy being a part of it.
That is really cool. And I should mention that you can watch these videos on the Digital NWT YouTube channel. And in them, Jacey, you bring up bush learning and innovative approaches to land-based teachings, which is obviously another huge important part of cultural revitalization. So can you talk a little bit more about that, or describe any particular examples that excite you about how digital technologies might offer opportunities in this direction?
Sure. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to like technology and on the land. Like for the past 2 years, I've been involved in youth programming on the land. It's not really on the land. It's kind of like an hour outside of Tate-Lecce or Fort McPherson at Midway Lake, or like an hour outside of Nuvik at the Gwich'in campground. And I grew up like on the land. Like you got to go there by bush plane, and that's all there is, just you in the land. But when it's connected by roads, it's a little different. But we're making our way further and further out there. So but still I find that there's like spots where there's more connectivity and where there's not. And usually youth will find where they can access Facebook, either like walking up a hill or something. And just being out there is it's a nice way to get away from technology, but at the same time like bringing youth out there that may miss the technology and may want to still remain connected. And then also speaking to other community members where they don't want to be connected. Maybe they're hunters and they're out on the land and they want their communities to stay more traditional and culturally oriented. And this upcoming weekend, after the one next weekend, I'm helping putting on a trapping camp, setting it up on the land for youth outside of Aklavik, about 10 minutes away. And then the week after that, I'm helping setting up a language camp about an hour outside of Inuvik. And yeah, it's kind of yeah, getting youth on the land and they may still be able to connect. That was one of our questions. And it's mostly also connectivity is so crucial. Like in case we need something brought to the camp from town or something happens, and especially when it comes to other technologies such as sat phones, satellite phones, that's super expensive technology to connect to one another from the bush. And then also being able to bring my digital language revitalization activism from technology back to on the land with our elders and our language champions and our youth, and talking about language, just really powerful. And there's so many layers and things to talk about. Did you want to add anything, Kyle?
Jacey, that's a really solid answer.
And there's something really beautiful about the idea or the mental image that I now have of someone on their phone, but also staying in one of those beautiful Fort McPherson tents that's out in the bush there. Yeah, that's awesome. I don't want to keep you too long because I know you guys have a prior engagement coming up, but I want to get in this one last question. We're just talking about the land, and it's impossible to talk about the land in the north without acknowledging that the effects of climate change are going to have huge impacts there, given that the north is warming at a faster rate than down here in southern latitudes of Canada. So I was just wondering if you see any digital skills or infrastructure offering any opportunities for mitigation or adaptation, and how the vulnerabilities of infrastructure up there, given permafrost melt and things like that, might affect these opportunities going forward.
Vulnerabilities of infrastructure. That's a great way to phrase that. Yeah, so like you're saying, you have variabilities in climate change, and so it's not just global warming. I mean, it's what, minus 60 today in Inuvik, Jacey. So, and your internet is handling it well. And I'm willing to say, are you connected, Jacey, by fiber optic?
Yeah, we have fiber optic here. It's been minus 50 for like over a week in Inuvik, and today in Yellowknife it's minus 60. Very cold.
And so those fiber optic lines can last. I mean, because the snow does melt, and so they're trenched. So it's trenched fiber optic lines. You also have satellites overhead, and then you have variable solutions. You have the deep sea trench lines also. So there are a few different companies that are doing that, and then you have with various reception. Jacey, I think actually I'd really really liked when you had brought up the other day about that youth and elders will have a different want for technology, or a different want for internet connectivity. So like, for instance, a lot of elders will say, like, it's hampering connections to the land. And so, with this push for locally owned community networks in lieu of the internet, or at least sovereignty over knowledges, and if not that type of connectivity, then human connectivity. Like, what is it that the internet replaces? What type? Why is connectivity that same word? Well, so anyway, that's this abstract parallel to say there are alternative solutions being used to bring us together, and so as much as there's a varying embrace on even bringing internet into communities, you have people like Elon Musk who are providing, what is it, the SpaceX satellites or whatever, that will bring in internet connectivity a lot better than landlocked lines or whatever, those fiber optic lines. So you have those LEO satellites, which function better if it's particularly cloudy. Then you're not able to access satellite as much. So the pushes for redundancies. That's really what is if there's a want for internet connectivity, then you would have to have redundant infrastructure. Then so that's internet, but if it's intranet connectivity, that's going to look different for each community, right? Intranet being those community networks, community-owned community networks.
bringing up the idea of data sovereignty and network sovereignty, I think, is a really exciting future to articulate. So leaving aside all possible limitations or concerns or obstacles, would you be willing to share and leave us with maybe a dream of what Northern digital culture looks like ideally in 2030 or 2050, if you're able to just blue sky an idea?
Wow. I was gonna say, yeah, I want my language to flourish, hopefully by 2040 at least. Have been creating more speakers, have equal connectivity, since connection really is a human right now, especially as we move forward. So to be able to better infrastructure where wanted and needed. What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, that's a really great answer. And for me, so the question was, 20, 40 years. With this question, I like to think, what about in 500 years? Because I don't think that digital tools will necessarily be sustainable for the next millennia in the way that we have been using them. Or, there's only so much you can mine Bolivia. There's only so much you can mine other indigenous communities or other countries, right? And Canada's particularly bad for it, and Apple and Tesla are particularly bad for that. So I think that there's an end. I think there's ultimately an end to that. So my embrace in the meantime is, how are we going to use these technologies in a way that we aren't mentally and culturally dependent on them, but allows us, like Jacey's saying, to flourish in our own way, to use them in a way that allows us to fight against Anglophonic and colonial hegemony. And so those technologies and tools are great in the meantime, but there's an eventual end, and how are we going to use them consciously in a way that meets that end?
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and share this all with our listeners. Well, I wish you all the best in your plans heading forward, and I'll keep a weather eye on everything y'all are doing up there. So once again, thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and take care.
Sicho, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Daniel.
Fascinating stuff. We're so honored to have these two contributing to the show. Thanks so much, Dan. I also had the opportunity to chat with Jessie Curell about her company Hands-On Media Education and the power of digital storytelling. So let's give that a listen, shall we? All right, welcome, Jessie.
Thanks, Belinda, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to be chatting with you. So, Jessie, do you want to let our listeners know a couple things about yourself and about your company?
Okay. So I actually got into filmmaking myself as a filmmaker in university. I did an anthropology degree, and for my honors thesis, I asked if I could make a film instead of write an essay. And my anthropology supervisor said, okay, but you're going to have to learn how to, make a film as well as do all the research that you would normally have to do for the essay. But I was really interested in exploring research through ethnographic film. Mm-hmm. That was my first kind of foray into film. And then I got into communications. I did a grad diploma in communications. I really was into sound and film as well. And then I did a master's in media production at Ryerson, and just really loved teaching other people how to tell their own story through media. I didn't spend long making my own media before I switched right into facilitating the experience for others, because I really saw the power of storytelling in the participants that I was working with. And that just brought me so much gratification, and I could just see how this was something that I was really going to enjoy. I love people, and I love stories, and I love media, and I love education. And so all those things kind of came together. So for my master's thesis, I started a project called Shout Out Media, teaching teenage girls media literacy, feminism, and media production. So we traveled from Victoria, BC to St. John's, Newfoundland, stopping every weekend in a new community, teaching teenage girls these things. And it was amazing. It was one of the best things I've ever done. Just fascinating to talk to these girls and meet them. And right when I got back to Toronto, I got hired by the National Film Board to deliver workshops with them through their media and digital literacy program that was teaching students in Toronto and Montreal how to tell their own stories through video and animation, documentary, digital storytelling. And we even did drawing and scratching on film, which was really fun. And it was great. And we were super popular. Like, it was a really packed program. And I was like, my master's was in media literacy. And so I just was so excited that the National Film Board was such a supporter of that. So I worked with the National Film Board for 5 years and just loved it. Got promoted to team leader and was relocated to the headquarters in Montreal. And it was amazing. It was a dream job. I was also doing a lot of special work, special events. And then in 2015, they cut the whole program.
Oh,
and
no.
It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for all of us. And I won't go into the details of it, but it was really hard for all of us. But I knew immediately that I wanted to start hands-on media. And I knew that this was work that I knew had value. I knew that Canadians needed more of this, not less of it.
Right.
And I loved the work. And so it's been almost 6 years. We've just federally incorporated as a nonprofit, and things have been really, really exciting and diverse and fulfilling and evolving. And the reach that we have is pretty exciting for what we can do online right now. But what's so surprising to me, to be totally honest with you, is how little media education there is for people of all ages, especially when our online usage has just shot through the roof for most of us, especially during COVID.
Right.
There's not the same, it's not growing in tandem with the usage. And so that's what our mission really is to do, is to try to bring media education to everyone, not just the ones that have the fancy workshops and the fancy laptops that their mom and dad buys them, but for everyone that's interested in connecting with people online, learning online, expanding their mind and their horizons. There's so much potential from an educational point of view and development point of view that we really want to be encouraging people to use the internet and technology, but in really safe and responsible ways. And I've found that video production is such a fun and really, really powerful way to learn real core media education skills, while just being, it's just so powerful and it's fun. And you don't necessarily say, oh, this is a media and digital literacy workshop to students. I don't tell them that. It's just full of traditional literacy, media and digital literacy, foundational kind of concepts, but they just think it's video creation.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been wild.
That's
it's been
amazing.
A wild ride.
That sounds so cool. I love what you do. Just for those who don't know, I know Jessie through working with Digital NWT, but I also was able to attend one of her digital storytelling workshops, which was a delight. Jessie, do you want to just kind of explain what digital storytelling is and what these workshops look like?
Yeah, for sure. So I've taught documentary film courses before, and when you have like all of the regular equipment that documentary films can have in terms of like a larger video camera and tripods and even a light kit and sound equipment, it can be quite overwhelming for first-time filmmakers to really get into the process. So I really love digital storytelling, which is an entry-level documentary video course, really. I'm basing it on the format that was originally called the Center for Digital Storytelling out of Berkeley, California. They've since changed their name to Story Center, and I love them down there. We have, definitely played with the idea of working together at different capacities, but nothing's really stuck. But I really look to them as inspiration. They've kind of come up with the format, which is a combination of photographs, voice, music, and text. And you weave it together using an open source or free video editing program. You add, title and credits. It's super technically easy to do, but what's so cool is that the story then is really allowed to shine through. So people don't get discouraged, hopefully, with the tech. And the most incredible things can come from it, the most incredible stories, and people really seem to really like the creation of it, and then they get to keep the project. So we've done, it can be based on any theme. I've done ones kind of as general as who am I, where have I been, and where am I going, as kind of a general frame for their story. But it can also be, talking specifically about climate change and how that affects you. Or I'm working with a group right now in Quebec, a group of grade 4s, and they're doing theirs on anti-bullying. But we're not even framing it as anti-bullying. We're talking about respecting ourselves, respecting others, and respecting our communities. So it's really beautifully fluid and open-ended. I always tell the students if something is striking them and they really want to riff and go off in a different direction, that's amazing. Go for it. Mm-hmm. There's no right or wrong way to make a digital story in my eyes. And they're relatively, short, they're 2 or 3 minutes, maybe up to 6 minutes, but they really pack a punch. And some really incredible stories of resilience and of love and of learning and of humility and of true ambition and goals for where they want to go. It's an incredible job to be the recipient of all these stories. I hear them and I just feel really honored to be in that space.
That's wonderful. And when you create these programs and offer them, who is kind of your end learner that you have in mind? Who are you trying to do this for?
Anyone that's consuming media.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really trying to help people shift from passive consumers of media into active creators. Not a lot of people have the critical thinking skills to sit with media, whether that be an article they're reading online or a YouTube video or a tweet, and sit with it and just pause for a few seconds before they just eat it up and just totally believe it and share it, and they've never thought about it. Most people actually don't really have that critical thinking skill development, which is really scary and quite hard to believe, honestly. It's such an important part of being a free thinking, independent, free agent. We are, incredibly smart, and we should be exercising this ability to be independent and have the questioning. That should be the first step that anyone does when they're consuming any media, is to just take a pause and think about it for a second. There's no better way to learn those skills than to make your own. So I really do love that through the creation, we're learning the power of music, and because we're choosing it ourselves for our project. So the next time you see a movie, you might be more attuned to what kind of mood the filmmaker has very heavy-handedly tried to set for you and the audience.
Right.
So it's really fun. I mean, I also do stop motion animation with a lot of kids, and it's much more playful, a lot more tactile. They're creating their own clay characters. They're shooting it with an iPad, and so that's a whole other genre, but can also be very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I attended your storytelling workshop, I was fortunate enough to be able to come and see you in person.
Mm-hmm.
What do things look like now with COVID restrictions for you?
It's so interesting. and I thank you for the opportunity to reflect on it. I've been able to reach more students than ever before. There's, the business that I started is called Hands-On Media Education. So the irony is not lost on me that a lot of the work I'm doing right now I'm not hands-on teaching it, but they're hands-on learning it. Mm-hmm. So there's been a slight shift there, but the scope and the reach is just so much bigger. It's really exciting. When COVID first hit, I was already teaching some online workshops, so it wasn't totally a stretch for me, but I felt for the parents and the students that were at home. I felt badly that they maybe didn't have enough to do or were confused about just how to fill their days. The school wasn't on. And so I started Home at Home, which was me delivering a 6-week workshop series, a series of videos. Every week I'd send them out with a newsletter and any other additional resources they might find helpful. And then I just wanted to see who would come. And I left it as a pay what you can. Mm-hmm. So no one would be turned away for sure. And we had people from Japan, from Bangladesh, from Austria, from the States, all across Canada. Like, to me, I was like, oh my God, whoa, okay, cool. That's awesome. And now I've just wrapped up round 2 of digital storytelling in Quebec, and it's open to all these high schools and elementary schools across Quebec, the whole province of Quebec. We had almost 700 students doing digital storytelling with me.
Wow.
In the fall. So, and we're talking about belonging. We're talking about the importance of community and communities right now, mm-hmm. and why we need to be, helpful to other people that might have just moved to Canada. Maybe they don't have very many communities. So what can we do to extend our hand and make them feel more welcome? So it's not just the media literacy stuff. It's the social element of it too, that right. I just find so important. And when I think about like 700 kids all hearing that and all being engaged in these discussions about respect and caring about each other, it just makes me feel really good.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, storytelling in itself has incredible power to deliver messages, to instill lessons and learning. And so to be able to create stories while teaching these lessons as well, while also instructing on how to use this technology, it's just incredible. So very awesome work that you're doing. Now, I think that's all I've got for questions for you, unless there's anything else you wanted to add.
No, I would just encourage everyone to be more media literate and digitally literate, and just really open your eyes to these really important new skills that we all need to be developing. And there's mm-hmm. all kinds of online resources that you can check out for free. Media Smarts is an amazing resource in Canada for anyone that doesn't know about them. Also, Namely or Common Sense Media in the States does amazing work. The News Literacy Project in the States. There's so much great mm-hmm. stuff. So,
did you want to plug any of your own socials?
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And I've started making media literacy minutes on TikTok,
Ooh.
Which are so fun. So it's hands_on_media for all of them. And yeah, I'm really into the TikTok, I gotta say.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Jessie. It's been wonderful chatting with you. And I hope our listeners enjoy hearing about everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Belinda.
And that's all for now. All of us at Shout hope you enjoyed this 2-part episode. We sure enjoyed making it. Be sure to follow us on our Facebook page or Instagram at Shout for Libraries, or on Twitter at Shout4Libraries. You can find all of our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Want to have your own voice heard on Shout? Well, we're always looking for new full-time and part-time contributors to join our team. Get in touch at news@cjsr.com to find out more. And don't forget to check it out.